There is a sheet of computer paper printed in the summer of 1977 that holds the strongest unexplained signal in the history of the search for other worlds. On it, in one narrow column, 6 characters run in a row, 6 E Q U J 5. Beside them, circled in red pen, a single word in a scientist's hand. Wow. That word is the whole name of this thing, not because anyone heard a voice or read a message. Nothing was decoded. The word was written because a man looked at a column of numbers and could not believe what the numbers said. For 72 seconds, near a frequency the universe itself sings at, something poured signal into an Ohio telescope. Then it stopped, and in the 49 years since, across more than 50 attempts with better instruments, no one has ever heard it again. The signal is gone. The paper is all that stayed. Understand what we do and do not have. There is no audio. There is no photograph of the sky at that moment. There is no second detector that caught the same thing. No one was watching live. The telescope was scanning the sky on its own, writing numbers to a printer, and the burst came and went while the paper simply advanced. Everything we know about the wow signal, we know from that one printout, the rise and the fall of it, the frequency, the strength, all of it is encoded in a handful of ink characters that a volunteer happened to read a few days later. So this is not a story about a message. It is a story about a document, a single surviving page, and about everything scholars have tried and failed to pull out of it. The record is the only witness, and the witness has never spoken twice. To read the page, you first have to stand where it was printed. Ohio State University ran a radio telescope they called the Big Ear. It was a Krauss-type instrument, a huge flat reflector and a curved one, aimed by tilting metal rather than swinging a dish. It did not track objects. It stood still and let the Earth's own rotation drift the sky across its view. From 1973, the Big Ear was pointed at a single question: is anyone out there transmitting? It ran what became, at the time, the longest-running search for extraterrestrial intelligence ever attempted from 1973 to 1995. The director was John Krauss. His assistant director was Robert Dixon. And because computers were slow and people were volunteers, the survey's output was paper, stacks of printouts, carried home, read by hand at kitchen tables. One of those volunteers was a man named Jerry Amon. Here is the trick you need to read the page. The Big Ear measured the strength of radio noise in each channel, moment to moment. To save space, it did not print full numbers. It printed one character per sample. A digit from 0 to 9 meant an intensity of 0 to 9. Then the letters took over. A was 10. B was 11 on up the alphabet, all the way to Z at 35. Each character stood for one average sample, roughly 10 to 12 seconds of listening. Sources differ slightly on whether the beat was 10 seconds or 12. Either way, 6 characters in a row add up to about 72 seconds. So, a quiet sky printed as ones and twos and blanks, ordinary noise, page after page of it. And a volunteer's job was to run an eye down those columns looking for the one place where the alphabet climbed. On one page, the alphabet climbed further than it ever had. 6. Then E, 14. Then Q, 26. Then U, 30. Then J, 19. Then 5. Read it as a shape and you can feel it move. Weak, rising, rising, a peak, falling, gone. 6 characters, about 72 seconds, a thing that swelled to its loudest and then faded, all in a little over a minute. That peak, the letter U, sat around 30 standard deviations above the background noise, 30 times louder than the ordinary hiss of the sky. In the entire history of the survey, it was the single strongest narrowband point ever recorded. Jerry Amon, reading the printout a few days after it was made, circled those 6 characters in red. In the margin, he wrote one word: wow. The exact day he did it was never pinned down in the records, only that it was a few days later, at his own table, long after the sky had moved on. Now, why did one word from one volunteer matter so much? Because of the shape. The big ear did not move. It let sources drift through its fixed beam as the planet turned, and a genuine point in the sky, a star, a distant source, anything truly out there, would enter that beam, brighten to a peak as it crossed the center, and fade as it left. Rise, peak, fall. That is exactly what 6EQUJ5 describes. The signal did not switch on and off like a machine. It swelled and ebbed on precisely the timescale a fixed celestial point should take to drift across the beam. That is the whole reason it is taken seriously. A signal from a passing car, a satellite, a fault in the wiring, those don't usually trace the clean arc of the turning sky. This one did, the paper says. Whatever this was, it behaved as if it came from out there, and the name misleads people. The word wow was not the message. The signal carried no decoded content at all. A narrowband tone is not modulated data. It was named for the astonishment of the man who found it, and nothing more. Then there is where on the dial it sat. The signal landed near 1420 megahertz, near 1420 4558 to be exact, the frequency at which neutral hydrogen, the most common substance in the universe, quietly radiates. Radio astronomers call it the hydrogen line, and around it the water hole. It is the single most watched frequency in the search for other civilizations, on the argument that anyone doing radio astronomy anywhere would know it too. It is also, by international agreement, a protected band. Transmitting there from Earth is prohibited, which is exactly why a powerful signal at that frequency is surprising, not reassuring. But here, the record starts to argue with itself. Krauss, in 1994, put the frequency below the hydrogen line at 1420 3556. Amon, in 1998, put it above the line at 1420 4556, about 50 kilohertz higher. The two feed horns and their calibration are the source of the disagreement. A modern reanalysis pushes it higher still. The honest statement is the uncomfortable one. It was at or just beside the hydrogen line, and exactly how far to the side is itself disputed. That offset, small as it is, turns out to be the hinge of the entire debate. And the record has two problems that no one has closed. The first is the second horn. The big ear did not listen through one funnel. It had two feed horns, producing two slightly offset beams, pointed so that a real source drifting across the sky would pass through one and then through the other about 3 minutes later. Two looks at the same thing, 3 minutes apart. The wow signal appeared in only one. A genuine point in the sky should have shown up twice. This one showed up once and left no trace in the companion beam. And because the records don't settle which of the two horns actually caught it, we are left with two possible positions in the sky rather than one. Two candidate points, 3 minutes of sky apart, sharing the same declination. Both land in the constellation Sagittarius, northwest of the globular cluster M55, a couple of degrees south of a little group of stars called Chi Sagittarii. At neither point is there a conspicuous star, a planet, or any known transmitter. There is a patch of sky, 2 guesses at it and nothing obvious looking back. Second problem is the one that has never gone away. It never came back. In the weeks after, the team swung the big ear back to that patch of Sagittarius again and again. Nothing. Just the ordinary hiss. And that was only the beginning of the listening. Robert Gray, an amateur astronomer who would spend much of his life on this, hunted it with the Meta array at Oak Ridge in 1987 and again in 1989. Nothing. The Very Large Array in New Mexico looked in 1995 and 1996, an instrument far more sensitive than the Big Ear had ever been. Nothing. Green Bank was turned to it. Nothing. In 1999, Gray and Simon Ellingson searched from Mount Pleasant Observatory in Tasmania, from the other side of the planet. Nothing. Decades later, the modern searches took their turn. In May 2022, Breakthrough Listen re-observed the region with the Green Bank Telescope and the Allen Telescope Array. No technosignature candidates. More than 50 re-observations across more than 40 years with instruments the 1977 telescope could not have dreamed of. Every one of them, silence. The signal was strong enough to be the loudest thing in the survey's history, and then quiet enough to hide from everything we have ever pointed at it since. This is the kind of thing we follow on Records Untold. The documents that outlast the event they recorded. If you want to be there for the next one, subscribe and stay with the search. So people have spent decades trying to explain the page without invoking anyone on the other end. Several of those explanations have not held. The loudest of them came in 2017. Antonio Paris, then at St. Petersburg College in Florida, proposed that 2 comets, 266P Christensen and a comet cataloged as 335P Gibbs, were near the WOW coordinates in 1977, dragging clouds of hydrogen that could glow at 1420 megahertz. The original Big Ear team and others took it apart. The comets weren't in the beam at the right time. One of them wasn't even discovered until 2006, and its placement back in 1977 is disputed. Comets don't emit strongly at that frequency. Their hydrogen is far too faint and too smeared across the band to make a sharp 30 sigma spike. And a comet does nothing to explain why only one horn saw it. The comet idea is, by broad consensus, rejected. There was an earlier guess, and it belonged to Eamon himself. In 1994, he floated the idea of an Earth-made signal, illegal in the protected band or leaking from a neighboring one, bouncing off a piece of orbiting debris to fake a source in the sky. He later partly took it back. The motion a reflector would need to mimic the smooth 72-second drift of the turning sky is unrealistic, and a reflector would not sit politely at the hydrogen line. A 2010 study noted that illegal transmissions in the protected band do happen, so a terrestrial origin can't be ruled out entirely. But the reflection idea, specifically, is disfavored. The explanation with the most support today is also the newest, and it is not yet settled science. Starting in August 2024, a group at the Planetary Habitability Laboratory of the University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo, Abel Mendez, Kevin Ortiz Ceballos, Jorge Zuluaga, Kelby Palencia Torres, and colleagues published 2 papers they call Arecibo WOW 1 and 2. They are preprints posted to the Archive, not yet peer-reviewed or replicated. In archival Arecibo drift scans, they report finding narrowband hydrogen line signals that look like small cousins of WOW, the same roughly 10 kilohertz narrowness in several spots on the sky, but about 100 times weaker, 2 orders of magnitude down. From that, they build a natural story. The 1977 event, they suggest, was a cold cloud of interstellar hydrogen that briefly brightened, stimulated into a burst of massive emission, like a cosmic laser in radio, set off by some passing transient, perhaps the flare of a magnetar. Their revised frequency, higher than either of the old values, would then be a Doppler shift, the fingerprint of a distant cloud moving, rather than the hydrogen line at rest. It is elegant. It needs no one out there. It reproduces the narrowness, and it explains why a one-time transient would never repeat. but it still does not fully explain the single horn. The specific trigger is, so far, hypothetical, and no one has yet caught anything at WOW's full strength to prove it. It is the leading idea, not the closed case. And the reason any of this is famous is the possibility everyone circles and no one can confirm. Eamon never disowned it. As recently as 2019, he allowed that the WOW signal certainly has the potential of being the first signal from an extraterrestrial intelligence, but he was the same man who warned again and again against drawing vast conclusions from half-vast data. The discipline is unforgiving on this point. In the search for other civilizations, a candidate signal only counts when it can be found again, replicated, confirmed, pinned down by a second instrument or a second night.